iHeartRadio, Black Excellence.
Hey, and welcome back to the 4th episode of iHeartRadio's Black Excellence series. My name is Dames Nellas, and I'm joined by Jamar, McNeil, Azalea, Hart, and Leah Abrahams to talk about cultural appropriation versus cultural appreciation. And ladies and gentlemen, I feel like this is like a super hot topic in 2022, the good, the bad, the ugly. But I feel like it's like a perfect conversation to kind of round out the series that we've been doing here, because let's be honest, we've talked about Caribbean roots, we've talked about Black community, we talked about hip hop and the culture and how it's global and how it literally is the largest art form on the planet. And I have an issue sometimes with like cultural appropriation in regards to like, what is it? Is it just yet another made up construct? Like, how would you guys define this? Let's go around the room first. Let's start with Leah.
Cultural appropriation is quite simple for me. It's if you are imitating or mimicking somebody else's culture that has substance to it, relevance, or some type of meaning behind it, significance. You're taking from that and you're not citing the source. You're not giving that person or that culture its credit, and you're claiming it as your own. And you're also not taking towards it the significance of it or the importance of it. That to me is cultural appropriation and needs to be called out.
Okay, Azalea, how you feel? Or are you echoing the same sentiment?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much echoing the same sentiment, because I also think that I'll have to use an example and say the blaccent. That this is
Aquafina.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So the way that she speaks, people were saying that is cultural appropriation, and then that is what she apologized for. And then I think her point of view, she was trying to say, is that she's appreciating the culture, and then that is what is that's what she thought she was doing. So I guess Jamar, we're gonna get into that deeper.
Yeah, no, we're gonna get into that. Jamar, how you feel about it, bro?
I think the reason why cultural appropriation is such a hot button topic is because we're in this like global society now where there are no borders. We've got the internet. We're all affected and influenced by each other's cultures. Kids in Japan love hip hop.
Yeah.
Girls in Spain love reggae. It's like we're all exposed to everything. And sometimes people adopt certain things, parts of a culture, and they don't realize the meaning, like on a soul level or even on a historic level, to some of the symbols that they're adopting. And had they known the symbolism or the meaning behind some of these things, whether it be, hairstyles, accents, any of those things, if they knew the meaning, fashion, if they knew the meaning, they might not do those things, or they might feel differently about them. So appropriation, a lot of times it looks like to the average viewer, like, oh, this person just appreciating culture. But to the person who's part of the culture, you're looking at somebody take something that like you're using that for a completely different meaning from what it is, and you don't appreciate it. That's appropriation. And a lot of times we're talking about dominant versus minority culture, where a dominant culture may, appropriate something and then completely spin what the minority culture intended that symbol or that expression to be. It's unfair because then you don't have the voice to own the narrative of your expression. You understand what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying. I think there are a few examples that we can touch on. I mean, Aquafina is one of them. We could circle back to that. When we think about it in general, in terms of culture, I look at the Millie Rock, right? The Millie Rock was his dance, a couple of years back. Dudes in New York just kind of came up with this thing, and then all of a sudden it became a global phenomenon, right? And the reality of it is it became this global phenomenon because of the internet. Like, there were people in like Fortnite, Millie rocking, and that's kind of like how it spread. And you look at this kid who's 15, 16 in New York, who made this thing. It goes worldwide. Everybody knows what it is, and he's not able to get any dividend or support his family or So that's where I think it becomes appropriation versus appreciation. And, the funny part is Leah and I were just having a discussion last week about Adele, because we were thinking back. Leah said something in regards to like hairstyle. I'm like, you know, what's that? And she's like, yo, you don't remember when Adele was at the carnival? I'm like, oh, yes, I do. So we pulled up the picture. First off, not the most flattering picture of Adele. I feel like they did her a little dirty.
I know, they caught her off guard that she had the sideways.
You know what you're talking about, Jamar? You know the picture.
Sideways. And it was like a scalp face.
And she was like, she had like a towel, but she was kind of like, Like, so they did her dirty. But anyways, there Adele is. She's got she's got the Bantu hairstyle. She's got
Jamaican shiny.
Yeah, she's got the Jamaican. Yeah, exactly.
Bantu knots.
That's what they're called.
She's got the Jamaican flag in like a bikini top, and I remember looking at this photo when it happened and literally just thinking nothing of it, because I'm just like, oh, she's at Carnival. You know what I mean? But that may just be my perspective, being that that's my experience, right? Like, we can go Caravana here, you can go to Trinidad, and you can see all walks of life who have come to have a good time. And that's when it, for me, is appreciation, because I think she was literally there to appreciate culture. And I think a lot of people are starting to realize now in 2022 that Adele ain't who you thought she was.
I love it.
Right?
I love
like,
it.
Oh yeah,
I love it.
She got some hood in her. She knows.
James, I love it, because it's like Adele's been propped up as this person, and like when you peel back the layers, you're like, yo, girls from the ends. Like she rocks.
When she was explaining that photo, she was saying, "This. I grew up in this culture. I grew up around these types of people." I mean, she was also telling us that she's represented. Like the fact that she was wearing the Jamaican flag is giving credit to Jamaica just by that. She didn't even have to say anything. She's giving credit by her attire. Right.
And don't forget that the fact that maybe one of her Jamaican homegirls may have done the hairstyle for her.
I think it looked tight, Jamar.
It looked
real tight, right? Like whenever,
you know when she was getting it done, her eyes were watering up. Come on now.
Oh no, it was tight. Like skin was,
whole headache
back, but it looked good. It probably lasted a few days.
Oh man.
But I think that's important when it comes to Carnival, and knowing that, because carnivals always are about their appreciation. So I'm going to say, when it comes to carnivals, what may come off as appropriation though are the girls that wear the costumes or go to Carnival just to wear the costume and take pictures. Right. That's when it becomes annoying to me.
Right. They don't know the significance behind it, or the relevance.
They don't care
behind it, and they're not going to ask. Yeah.
No. They don't care about the music. They never listen to a soca song in their life. All they want is to put on the costume. And I think this is what became a huge issue on what a lot of Trinidadian women took offense to. And I think it was Joe Budden. He had said on one of his podcasts.
He said something wild. He said some nonsense. And my sister got tight about it too. And I never really realized the perspective, because I listened to that podcast, like Leah knows from time. I listened to the podcast partially because I know Joe. I used to DJ for Joe. So those that don't know, like it started off as like a support thing. I know him personally, right? Not like besties or anything. But he said, because Ashanti went down to Trinidad, 2019 maybe, I think somewhere around that time. And he said, and he made reference, basically, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he made reference to basically like looking like a hoe. And it's like, bro, that's not what this is.
He had said that girls put on the costume to shake their ass and be naked in the street.
That's what he said?
Yeah, something along those lines.
My girl Azalea got that one imprinted.
Yeah.
Azalea's Miss Carnival, so you're not going to disrespect the Carnival. Trust me.
Right. So it's like, yes, the costumes are sexy, but there's such a long, history of like how the costumes came to be what they are now. Like it just like changed over time, and like fashion. But it does get annoying when you do see somebody who doesn't know anything about the culture just want to put on the costume for that fact. Ashanti, on the other hand, she had come out with a soca song with Marshall, and she was appreciating the culture, and now she loves it. Now she listens to soca all the time. You always catch her on her Instagram lives or Instagram stories, and she's playing soca in the background.
And, I think what we're talking about here is nuance. A lot of, in such a big world we live in, people forget that there's like nuance to a lot of the things and discussions and things that we're seeing. For example, from the African-American perspective, when you see someone like a Kim Kardashian rocking braids or whatever it is, and, when any woman who's not Black rocks braids, And number one, they might call it by the wrong name. They'll say, "Oh, I'm rocking the Bo Derek hair," and it's like Bo Derek, like
that's like
this
Scandinavian thing, right?
like, yeah, it's like this. Well,
The white
she's,
woman.
you know, the
It's
actress,
a
but it's
real
like,
form.
but it's like this hairstyle is way before her.
Mhm.
Like, this is not her hairstyle. This is a deep rooted African tradition of braiding hair. Or, for example, you know, a lot of people once again, the African American perspective is like, you're doing something, my counterparts, that if I did this in the workplace, I'd be called ghetto.
Yes.
You know, I gotta, you know, if I rock my hair this way for a job interview, I'm going to be disqualified. If I do these things, I gotta hide these things in order to be acceptable in this, you know, in this mainstream world. But then you do it like it's just a style, and that hurts for a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? I
want to interject right here because Jamar, you're actually the only like American perspective that we have on this podcast, right?
Sure.
So I want to touch a little bit on the American experience versus the Canadian experience when it comes to like, you know, culture, minority, BIPOC, Black. Like what I found with a lot of Americans is, and you know, like I said, I was touring with Joe Budden, so I was able to meet a lot of Black Americans, and they literally think they're just Black. And I'm like, well, I remember having conversations and be like, well, where are you from? Where are your parents from? And they're just like, I don't know, we're Black. You know what I mean? And my sister's been living in the States for over a decade now. And I had the conversation with her because I thought it was just so weird. Like, we're from Toronto. Like, within meeting somebody brand new in Toronto, the question, where are you from? Within 3, what's your name? How you doing tonight? Where are you from? Like, that's how it goes, right? So it used to catch me off guard a little bit. And this is going back to hear somebody not really have a connection to their true culture. But the reality of it is they don't know, right? And when you're talking about not knowing, you're talking about generations of slaves, right? So when they say, and this is a piece that people have to realize, when they say African American, they literally mean African American. It's
Africans
not,
in America, you know. People forget that slavery lasted for over 400 years. And then after those 400 years, and then after that, you got Jim Crow, you got segregation, you got all the other things that happened post-slavery. So you got generations and generations of Black folks who are separated from the continent, and literally their culture now
just separated from the culture, right?
Separated from the culture.
They were stripped away from their culture, stripped from it.
Yeah. So their culture is now African American, as Africans in America, black people.
Yeah.
You know, whereas me, I'm not going to claim, because I'm a Jamaican American. You know, I'm first generation here in the continent of my family, so I trace my roots most closely to Jamaica.
Right.
But growing up with African Americans, you understand that that joint is a serious offense when people take things from your culture and claim it to be theirs, or claim it to be a style, where number one, you don't even have the freedom to express your culture in the same way that they're expressing your culture, because you'll get excluded from society, called out your name. You know, you can't get a job if you go into I don't know how many girls go to a job interview rocking braids. You know, like Black girls just don't do that, because
Leah did it. Leah, you did that.
Excuse me. Job interview.
No. I'm just shooting.
No. But times are changing. Times are changing. But to more of your part, Jamar, to your point, Jamar, when I first started out in radio, I was told by somebody who was already working in that company, I asked, how do you think I should wear my hair? Because it actually means everything.
We had this conversation last time.
We had to assimilate to have our hairs, creamed and relaxed and straightened, because that is the norm and that's what's acceptable. So I did ask, am I able to wear my hair curly, just naturally curly from the roots, like how, the Lord blessed me with, or should I straighten my hair and, assimilate to the rest of the office? And I was told, straighten your hair. It's the best idea for you. It'll go over smoother. It'll go over better. And unfortunately, that is what I did, because I wanted the job. And but I did feel like I couldn't be my true authentic self if I wasn't even able to wear the hair that comes naturally out of my head. So you do definitely have a point there, Jamar. Hair is
people need to hear that, because
Black women.
Because what people don't understand is, when the average, if the white girl or whatever comes back from vacation with her braids, everyone's looking at her like, oh my gosh, you went on vacation, you look so great, da da da. But for Black women, you don't want to be looked at as revolutionary, a Keisha, you know, you don't want to be looked at as a ghetto girl, all these things that they've attributed to Black expressions, that Black, you know, it's mostly negative. So when you see someone else doing something and taking and using so flippantly, there is a tendency for people to be like, yo, what's up with that? Like, that's mine, and I can't even rock it like you're rocking it. And there's a different seriousness. For me, it's dreadlocks. You know, whenever I go back, you know, when I go back home to Jamaica and I see the guys on the plane, the most awkward thing is sitting on the plane with the guy wearing the fake dreadlocks cap, and I've got the real dreadlocks. and we just sit each other. I'm just sitting there on the plane. I'm just like, and he's looking at me.
God.
I mean, I get it. It's something that, you know, Jamaica does for tourism, and you know, Jamaica is an interesting case because a lot of people in Jamaica, because we don't have the same legacy of American slavery, a lot of things are looked at as like, hey, we actually like when people
do X, Y, and Z.
Do X, Y, and Z, because it's a, you know, it's a 90%. Yeah, it's a 90% Black culture, country. You know, the feeling is a little different when people come because you have control over, you know, the narrative a bit more. But in America, it's a lot different because Black Americans don't have the control of the narrative a lot of times.
All right, let me interject here because there are a few things that I think are interesting about this conversation. First of which, you know, we were just discussing Adele, and then Kim Kardashian got brought up into the mix, and I can't help but just think about the hairstyles from the Adele picture, and obviously Kim Kardashian, you know, doing the braids. Why do we think it's okay for Adele to do it, but not okay for Kim Kardashian to do it? Is it because she's like monetarily like making money off of it, or is it just style? And then it's context. Mm-hmm. So if Kim was here at Caravana with the hairstyle and the whole nine, would we be talking about her in the same light as Adele, or is it transgressions from the past as well, looking at your history? Like, no, seriously. The other part I want to pick up on is with Azalea. She mentioned, you know, a lot of the times when people go down to Trinidad, they're literally just there for Instagram. But the thing about it is, boiling back to the discussion is celebrities, okay, but boiling back to the discussion of cultural appropriation, sometimes the barrier to, we don't always know where the barrier to entry is, right? So like we said, Ashanti, maybe people might have been looking at Ashanti like, yo, look at this, you know, she doesn't know what she's doing. What is she doing here? She's just here posting up pictures. But then 2-3 months down the road, she's still listening to Marshall and she's doing, you know, records with Cass or whoever, right? So sometimes the barrier to entry, while the intention may not be there initially, the barrier to entry actually creates something that props up the culture, which is why I kind of have an issue sometimes with cultural appropriation, just the phrase in general, because it's like you don't really know what the intentions are. Yes, obviously people who take and never give back, there's a problem with that, right? But sometimes people are actually just inquisitive and they're explorative and they just want to see what it's all about. You know what I mean? So I think it's a two-sided coin where it needs to be inclusive, but the people who violate need to get checked at the same time, right? So
sure.
Let's start with the Kim Kardashian thing, because I think that's an interesting one. Kim Kardashian, Adele, essentially the same thing but different.
Sure. I think with the responsibility that celebrities have to hold is they might have to frame it in a way. They might have to address it head on and directly. So, and that's what Adele did. When she was wearing the Bantu knots and the Jamaican bikini top, she was speaking on the festival that happens every year, similar to Caravana, that happens in London. She was speaking about the appreciation she has for the culture and the relevance it was to her life, because that's how she was brought up. She was brought up around this community, and she was brought into this community by the people in the community. Kim Kardashian, however, was rocking the Bo Derek braids and didn't address it. She just had it on, and like People Magazine, Cosmopolitan, very big publications were claiming that she was starting a new trend. So that frame around it made it seem like there was no credit due to the originators of the style, right? Okay. And there's also very heavy cultural significance to braids. Like, there's a reason for why Black women wear their hair the way they do. It keeps it. It allows us to have our texture is very different from other cultures' textures, and that's a style that allows us to be able to like protect. Thank you. That is the word. Protect our hair and our style. So for her to rock it that way with no context and then have it seem as if she was creating a new style by all these publications, that's where we get upset.
Right.
So I would have to say the responsibility of the person rocking these styles, they'll have to take it on head on and directly. So I would put the responsibility on them.
So in your opinion, is literally just about ownership. And I don't mean like taking ownership of it, but like literally like, yes, I'm wearing my hairstyle like this because I did a little research on so and so and so. But it also sounds like we're giving Kim Kardashian in this particular example some flack because some other major marketing and advertising company decided to run a story, right? So
not just her. No, it's
I know. But what I'm trying to say is this, you know, I think if anybody was listening to these past 4 podcasts, I think the silver lining throughout all of it is marketing and advertising. Yet the least discussed thing when it comes to people of color and culture is advertising. It's always about, oh, the boardroom needs to change. Oh, this, but nobody's actually talking about the, you know, the consulting firm or the ad agency that comes in and tells the corporate company, in order for you to make the most money, you got to exclude X, Y, and Z, or hire this, this, and this, or do that, that, and that. It's like literally the whole entire, what's the word? I'm not franchise, but the whole industry is just flying under the radar. And I don't know if it's because nobody's willing to say it. Money makes the world go round. We all know that. But like, we can keep discussing the corporates and the this and the that all we want. But until somebody kind of drills down the marketing and the advertising behind all of this stuff that happens, and that has started to get included into the conversation, I feel like we're doing a, you know, we're on a cyclical. We're just like a hamster in the wheel. You know what I'm saying?
But I think there's also a lot of allegations, or some of them are proven, with the Kardashians. And I don't want to bash the Kardashians. I'm not trying to do that. But there have been a lot of reports of them taking designs or fashion or looks or anything like that from Black women without crediting those Black women. And I think that has become a major issue when it comes to that group of sisters, because it's been proven time and time again, because those Black women are coming forward and they're saying, you know, and this is not just hairstyles, obviously, this is, you know, clothing, this is designs, and this is something that, you know, somebody actually created and they put it out there to try to sell. And then it's finding its way to the Kardashians, and then it's being recreated and being sold.
The same thing happened on, I mean, we all remember the TikTok dances, you know.
Well, it's going back to the Millie Rock, right? Like
all the TikTok dances are essentially like hip hop dances that are like descendant from African dances. And then, you know, when the Black kids are doing them, it looks like a bunch of ghetto kids doing a dance, but then you get the white kids doing it and it looks like these kids that are so cool and they're like so revolutionary. They're just so cutting edge because they can do these dances. It just, you see it all the time, like where 2 sets of people will do the exact same thing, but it's taken differently. It's almost like a fetishizing of Black culture.
Yeah. There's a whole other part to that, and it's funny that you bring that up though. But there's a whole other part to that, which is like AI based and technology based in regards to face and facial features and algorithm recognition. Like this stuff runs deep. It's not just surface level. Oh, he's got his hair that's okay. Those are point of topics, right? That always drums up conversation one way or the other. But when you start to get into the nitty gritty of how the world is turning, it's a lot deeper than we think, than we know, than we realize. The information is out there. We need to go, you know, literally do some research and kind of figure it out. But to your point, Azalea, you know, that is taking from culture, right? Like not crediting people and then making money, that's flagrant. When you think about acts like Ed Sheeran and Justin Bieber, when they take reggae rhythms, let's be honest, when they take rhythms,
it's crazy. Justin Bieber had like a whole reggae album damn near. Like I was like, and no one realized. I was like,
the real heads realized, right?
I was like, yo, these are reggae rhythms. Like you do know that this is like
1000%, right? So what I feel like, it's music, right? And music will always take from this, that, and the third. Inspiration comes from all kind of places, right? But those type of conversations, like, they need to happen, because for the longest time we've had all of these, you know, producers out of Jamaica literally just, you know, just making rhythms and the artists, the dancehall artists, and they've never been, it's only a select few that have been able to go mainstream. And it's like, well, why is that? Why can you have, you know, so-and-so make the rhythm and Justin Bieber get on the beat and then it go #1, but then so-and-so made that same rhythm and for lack of a better term, who knows, put another artist from North America on it, but have it just not fly the same way. Like, do we look at that as appropriation as well?
It's a couple different factors there, Dames, because it's like, number one, it's like, who are you marketing to? Like, we talked about this a couple podcasts ago, like, what is the audience, right? And if you're talking about, you know, mainstream, if that's the word we're using, that's a big audience, but it's not really representation. It's not really represented by, you know, fully minorities, obviously, because that's a numbers game. You know what I'm saying? So you're playing that numbers game. I often think about it because I'm in pop radio. It's like, it's so much harder for an artist of color to bust or break out in mainstream, because a lot of times people just want to identify with somebody that looks like them. You know what I'm saying? They just want to rock with somebody that just, you know, when I don't know, Adele's a soul singer, in my opinion, but I mean, if Fantasia was singing her songs, they would just be for a different girl. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's like, when I hear Adele sing, I just hear, you know, what's her face? Jennifer Hudson, really. But no one takes it that way. And it goes to a different place because of who's consuming it. The other thing is too, like, we're talking about power structures here, guys. Like, you know, for me personally, it always seems so easy. Black people, like, our stuff is like a buffet. Like, everyone can come just take, like, just use it, right? But like, I could not walk outside right now with like a Jewish kippah or a yarmulke on my head right now. People would look at me like I'm crazy. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? There's certain symbols that I just could not do because the people that own that would come for me. Like, it just would not work. But I feel like this is the lack of power that Black people have. It's getting better, but you know, people historically have been able to just take without consequence. Like,
you know what, though, that might be
who's gonna stop them, right? You know,
that might be a tale or a tragedy, actually, that can be highlighted by the points that we made earlier in the discussion in regards to African American. Like, you got to think, people are, you know, some people are allowed to migrate with means. They bring their this, they bring their that, and then when you think about the African American experience, there was no migration. It was literally stealing. You know what I mean? So
it was the stealing of bodies. Yeah.
Right. So when you look at it from that perspective, in regards to what you're saying, where people just come and take, it may be because there was never really any ownership to begin with, right?
Absolutely. So, I mean, it's actually the Caribbean story too, Dames. I mean, we were taken brought to the Caribbean too. You know,
100%, right? It's all like
the only difference is, you know, not the numbers game. Like, at some point, we became the majority in these countries and have ownership of our culture and our.
Well, the reason I bring up America is because we're kind of having like a mainstream conversation, right? As much as we love the islands and the West Indies,
I just want to make sure. I want people to know that we know history.
Like, you know,
exactly.
America kind of makes the world go round. Speaking of America, can Azalea, you mentioned the Aquafina thing. Can maybe some people who are listening or watching, they may not really know what happened there. Do you like know the story? Can you explain the story? And then I want to have a discussion about that.
To explain. So Aquafina, you know, she rose to fame as being a comedian, and she had a YouTube channel. And I want to say that she's from New York originally.
Yeah, I think she's
from New York. Yeah.
Right. So I think that anybody who's seen, you know, any of the shows, any of her shows, and now I'm going to be honest also and say that I didn't actually think that she ever put on a blaccent. I kind of just thought it was a New York.
That's me too. I'm like, is she from New York?
Yeah, I thought that she was just doing like a New York accent. So then maybe Jamar could chime in on that.
She's got a New York accent, but once again, I just go back to my former point. Like, it's really funny when in the culture, in pop culture, it's funny when you see people that are not Black say certain words, certain inflections, certain slang.
Yeah,
it's like it's almost as if, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's one of those take things where it's like, who's gonna call me out on this? I could do it because
I think her voice is actually what made her rise to fame so quickly and put her where she is now. So I think that is what the issue is that she's not being what other people are perceiving her to be, her authentic self, and that is why she is where she is today.
All right, let me put this one out.
She apologized for using a blaccent.
Let me put this one down to Leah. I don't know how well you know, but I always thought that she was just from New York, because that's how people in New York talk, right? So Leah, I know you like Andrew Schultz. Do you think there's a difference between Aquafina and what Andrew Schultz does? And they're both comedians.
Yeah. Okay. To speak on Aquafina, I do believe that there was a little bit more than just New Yorker accent. The words she was using seemed to be in the vernacular of Black Americans. The way she was, in the inflection in the way she would say things was clearly to mimic Black people. I don't think she was doing it in a derogatory way in any way. I think she knew that her being an Asian woman and having, the experiences around probably a lot of Black people growing up, she knew that that would propel her. That's just what I think. I'm not sure if this is actually true. She hasn't said that, but it does seem like she was taking advantage of her opportunities around the community to prop herself up. And as Azalea had mentioned, that is what kind of brought her to fame. So I think she kind of took advantage of what she knew.
But what if that is, but what if it's
more, it's blaccent to me, it is.
What if it's truly, okay, this is why the cultural appropriation conversation is like a conversation.
Yeah.
What if that is truly her? You know what I'm saying? Like
it's a very tough question.
Episode,
yeah, you're right, Dave.
Last episode, we were talking about, we were saying to Mission Me, I love the fact that, my Swedish friend can say, yo, Dames, wagwan. Like, we were talking about that. And we look at those people in our lives and we go, yeah, that's just who they are. They, they come to my house.
I don't like that.
You don't like that.
It just seems like it was put on for a reason, Dave. Like,
okay.
Like, really not here for it.
No.
Nuts.
For the record, I don't have a Swedish friend, but you guys know.
But here's the other side of that, Dames. Here's the other side of that, Dames. I gotta say this because it's like, once again, people need to understand why for Black people this is a hot button issue, because when Black people use those words, you gotta change that so you can get your money. Like, you can't go into a corporate setting or a professional setting and talk like that, because then you'll be put lower on the totem pole. No matter how much book smarts, degrees, anything that you got. The other part about that is too, when Black people actually speak like standard straight English, we're ridiculed for it. They call you white. They tell you you're this. They tell you you're that. They make fun of you. So it's like, it's just a very interesting thing that I personally feel that Black people are just like up for grabs. Like, you could say whatever you want, do whatever you want. You can call us whatever you want. You could take from us whatever you want. It's just like, it's just this group of people that is like no rules. And I could not walk around.
No rules, but all the rules.
No rules, but all the rules. I could not walk around talking like I was from India. I just couldn't. I could not walk around with a Chinese accent, like saying like, yo, I hang around Chinese people, so this is how I talk.
But hold on a second. But if you knew how to speak Chinese, would that mean you don't speak Chinese? You know what I'm saying?
If I knew how to speak Chinese, I'd probably speak Chinese with a slightly American accent. Now, would that mean that at some point my American language would have some Chinese dialect or some? I don't think so.
Right.
But the point is, it's like, I feel like we have to be careful when we trot around other people's cultures. Whereas with Black folks, it's just like, hey, I just hang around Black people, so I can do whatever. Like, it's like,
I hear what you're saying.
That's just how I feel. It might not be. That's how I feel, though.
No, you're right. That's
you know what I'm saying?
Like, no, it's facts. That's exactly what it is. We don't have the same privileges. That's just
like I just can't.
Don't. For our own culture, which is so mind blowing. For our own culture, we're not allowed to speak the way we would like to speak.
The thing about what Jamar just said that was pretty intense, but it might have went over your head. It was just kind of like, we're not. It doesn't matter how many books you got, how many degrees you got, how many this you got, how much experience you have. When you try to get behind the scenes, if you speak this way, it's a no-go.
It's not happening.
But you can be used as a piece if the brand wants to look cool.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And that right there is that was deep, bro. I heard that. I'm like, you're right, because sometimes you just reflect on life and you're like, well, hold on a second. You did everything right. You grew up, you stayed out of trouble, you went to school, you got the degree, and now here you are, you're trying to make it in the world, and you got all of these things, and you start to self-reflect and be like, well, why is it like this? Like, I'm smarter than this person. I got more credentials than this person, right? But when it's time to, put on or put somebody in front of 5,000 people to get the house rocking before the main actor, it's always like, well, we know a guy who could do it or a girl who could do it. You know what I mean? So it's a deep conversation to have.
I put it like this, Dames, like, anyone that listens to me on CHUM 104.5, listen to our show every morning, know that that's not how I talk when I'm home. Like,
but you see, that's but
straight
that right
patois,
there.
like we're Jamaicans, you understand?
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Chet Hanks
Okay,
Hanks could put the accent on and go viral.
Oh, Chet went wild with it. Chet went wild with it, and now he's all in. Like, he's all in the public now, and he's like,
we know what we have to do to make it in the mainstream world, whereas our counterparts can use it as just a style.
Yeah, I mean, a great example of that is Miley Cyrus. That's another one. When she felt like dropping the Disney act and the innocent appearance, she went directly to Black culture and propelled herself through Black culture with Mike Will Made It.
Yeah,
remember that?
I think they were dating though. Weren't they dating?
Twerking was being attributed to her. Meanwhile, it's an African dance and there's a significance behind the dance. But twerking was being told that we were being told that she created twerking. That's ridiculous. Lizzo did a full TED talk on the origin of twerking, and she called Miley Cyrus out on that specific point. And the fact that that had to be said is frustrating.
The examples are rampant, you know, and we don't even need to like do a deep dive on. Literally in the conversation, we came in here with nothing, and it's like we got this person. Look at this person. Look at this person.
Well, Dames, the word is historic. The examples are historic. That's what it is.
That's really what it is.
This has been something that's been replicated throughout history. Like you know, Black people are the spice of life, and if you use the spice, the dish tastes a little better.
True that.
That's
now listen. This one is uniquely Canadian. Because over the past, literally it's been history, but in recent memory, in the past couple of weeks, right, we've seen the world's largest broadcaster, even though he's not really a broadcaster, he's a podcaster, Joe Rogan, getting some hot water over some stuff. The prime minister of this country, right, there's been some leaked images, not even leaked images. There are images out there where he's, attending a party and he's in blackface. That kind of stuff, right? So the question that I have in regards to Jamar, I realize that you're American, but you're here in Canada. And us as Canadians, like first generation Canadians, like, my parents came here under Trudeau's dad. You know what I'm saying? So you fast forward like, 30, 35 years, and to see his son get caught up in a scandal or a mix like that, like, and we know he was at a party and this, that, and the third, but do you shoot him any bail, or is that just something flagrant that should never happen? Like, where do the opinions lie on that?
You know what? I don't know if I could render a judgment. All I could say is that North America needs better education. Like, people need to understand what blackface is and why it's wrong and how it was used, like from, the early beginnings of slavery and minstrel shows, and how white people were painting themselves to make fun of these Black slaves and segregated people, and why that's never okay. Like, like I said, Dames, I don't want to go around your question, but I think the big thing for me is that, like, we don't have enough education about I see too many people fighting to say the N-word, and they've never seen like Birth of a Nation, the movie. Like, you need to understand that if you knew the history, you wouldn't even want to say the word. Well, you wouldn't even fight for it. Like, if you knew the history, you would never dare wear no blackface, because you wouldn't want to be associated with those horrible people to do those atrocious things to Black folks. True. So, I mean, I think everyone needs more education on the truth. And the problem is, in North America, Canada specifically, I think, because I think America has gone through our reckoning much earlier than Canada. We try to pretty things up so that we don't have to have the tough conversations, but you got to open it up and look at the ugly so you could understand how to operate correctly.
Well, let me just interject here, right? We've seen truckers posted up in the nation's capital for 21 days. We've seen disruption all across the borders. We're talking closing in on $1 billion worth of lost revenue in trade so far. And the question that I have with people in conversation is, like, they cleared them natives out of there real quick when they were protesting, right? That's the first one, right? And then the second one is like, you think a Black Lives Matter protest, a peaceful protest with Black Lives Matter, could last 3 weeks and have bouncy castles and performances and all kind of thing going on? No. Absolutely not. So I agree with you. Canada has a way and this is us talking, this is perspective, but it's our perspective. Canada has a way of glossing things up and sweeping things under the rug, like putting a little flashy something over here and then sliding something by on the low, you know? And I think as you said, America has maybe come to the reckoning a lot sooner than us. The reckoning needs to happen, because what we're seeing is it's just like a blatant example of privilege at the present time. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, for any minority in the country to see that, like, what does that really say to you? It's like, well, remember the time when they killed George Floyd for no real reason, and we got 3 hours to light a candle before they said, all right, it's over, go home. It's like, what if we weren't finished?
Right.
Straight up. Like, what if we're not done? What if we want to see some real changes? You know what I mean? But then on the other hand, you got people who are just able to literally just stop the flow of the economy for no real reason. Like, I understand their reason, but I think it's so far removed from the actual reason that they started in the first place. Totally other topic, but I just wanted to know if like Leah or Azalea had anything to add in regards to, like just the Rogan stuff, or like, Trudeau and blackface, or did you think Jamar just kind of nailed it?
He nailed it.
He nailed it, because I think education is a huge thing that is very lacking, because every time, we'll have to keep using celebrities as an example. Every time a celebrity is called out on something, the first thing that they say is that I'm educating myself.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
good answer.
You should not make it to like 20 years old and not know these historical things. It's just not, I would say to any of my white counterparts listening, watching right now, like, don't be uneducated, because you're just only putting yourself in peril. You don't want to say something, do something that you should have known, and then have to be called out for it, have to go through all that. Like,
I'm listening and I'm learning.
Ignorant.
Ignorance. We all, everyone needs to educate themselves, like, because unfortunately, it's just so easy once again to just discount things that happen to Black people as, oh, that's in the past, we should know about it. But like, gosh, like, I don't.
Why allyship becomes
you know what?
More important again.
So it's funny, because I was watching the Janet Jackson doc a couple weeks back. Big Janet Jackson fan, by the way. And I was looking at this imagery from like when she did Rhythm Nation, which was the late 80s, I think 88 or 89. And I was looking at the imagery and why she decided to go with creating that album and that record. And she was saying, it's just a lot of social injustice, social unrest, racism, prejudice, And she's going down the list, and you're looking at images of like people at war, Berlin Wall, like all this stuff. And I said to myself, this looks a lot like today. In terms of like protests and anti this and and civil unrest. Like, so what I say is the without educating yourself, as we've been saying, things will repeat. Yeah. Right. And I'm not, we don't want to take it back to that level, but in a lot of ways, I feel like we still haven't advanced very much. And I feel like Donald Trump was like the catalyst to show the world that.
For sure.
You know what I mean? So anyways, with that being said, how do you guys actually feel about Black History Month? Like, because I've seen this has been a hot button topic. Like, a lot of people are like, I don't really even want to celebrate this, because it's not to be celebrated. It should be for whatever reason, however they feel that way, right? Like, how do you guys feel about that?
I think Black History Month is an important jump off. It puts the history of a people on the radar. It's unfortunate that it's on the shortest month of the year. It's unfortunate that it's just a month. It's unfortunate that it's separate from just history in general, that it's some kind of elective, whereas like regular, for the American purpose, regular American history is like main history. Then you have Black history. It's like Black history is interwoven in American history. The two are inseparable. You cannot separate the two, because the history of America is Black history. Like, Black history is part of the history of America. So they should both be taught in tandem together as one, but here we are.
And it's also important to note that the Honorable Jean Augustine, she is the one in 1995 to single-handedly make February Black History Month in Canada. And and then she's the first Black woman in Parliament, I believe.
She was on CB24 the other day.
Right. Yeah, she was. And you know what I mean? And that was only in 1995.
That's crazy that it was only 19. I mean, that was just yesterday for some people.
Right.
Yeah.
So but at the same time, she's Black, she did a lot as a Black woman. And with both of you guys on the program, we bigged you up the entire podcast series because I feel like it's important. But like we were saying, I believe in the last protest, like sometimes you need to see it first in order for that seed to be planted. So like with the Barack Obama example, you know, or the example you just gave us. Like, Leah, how do you feel about it?
Similar to Jamar's point, I believe I think it's being used in a good way. I mean, it is unfortunate that it's not spoken about every single day, but it is a time for people to reflect. I mean, I just don't want it to become performative, and sometimes it does. That's my only issue with it is, you know, now's the time for people to pretend like they care, and because it's only a month. So after, you know, February 28th, they don't really have to, you know, think about it or care. Just give us a month and that's that. I hope people are really taking the time to take in what is being broadcasted and what is being, you know, profiled. But I think take advantage of what you can. That's, in my opinion, that's what I try to do. Take advantage of this time where, you know, there is a month dedicated to Black people. So I really hope that people are taking advantage of the history and the knowledge that is being brought forth in this month.
And the fact that Black history is being made every single day. You know,
yeah, future.
And for the Oscars coming up with
Regina Hall,
and I talked about this on the morning show, and I can't remember her name. All right, Wanda Sykes.
There you go.
Oh,
this
great.
is the first time ever that 2 Black women are going to be hosting
and
simultaneously.
Like on some real talk, get Amy Schumer up out of here, man. Like
I know.
You tired of Amy Schumer?
Amy. No, Amy is an ally for real. Like,
nah, but
Amy's an ally. No, I like Amy.
It would be cool to say, you know, all women of color or all Black women host. You know, like that would have been cool to say.
That would have been.
That
cool,
wasn't even my angle. I just wanted to put Amy Schumer.
You're not feeling Amy Schumer?
No, bro, I don't like Amy Schumer, guy. Man. Anyhow, listen, I feel like this is a great discussion today. I feel like it was an important discussion too, because I didn't know where the discussion was going to go. But that's the thing, when you talk about culture and you talk about appreciation, just like any asset, it tends to grow. So we've watched the culture grow from, you know, wherever to being global. So this is a conversation that had to happen. It was a great one. It went all around, all across the board. We talked on celebrities. We talked on, you know, the advertising. We spoke on education, which I think was fantastic. Thank you guys once again. And thank the audience and the listeners for listening to this. Jamar, Azalea, and Leah, thank you for sharing your thoughts. It's been great convo the past 4 podcasts. Of course, they're streaming on the iHeartRadio app, so don't forget to download that and check that out. And of course, you can also listen to us on the radio because we deliver some banter from time to time. Not so serious, but you know, we like to have fun.
Yeah. I'll go back to talking to Britney Spears tomorrow. Everybody.
We're back.
For Jamar and Adele, be sure to check them out on CHUM FM 104.5 on the dial. And for myself and Leah, 99.9, very easy. Guys and gals, it's been a great one. Thank you so much once again. And who knows? Maybe we do this a little bit more frequently outside of February.
Yeah.
We'll see. To be continued.